Good morning, guys. Welcome to our first session of Data Camp. We are excited that you're here today, and we hope that these sessions give you some great ideas and plans for you moving forward in your data journeys at your respective campuses and jobs. Our first session today is virtual enrollment services, meeting students where they are, and this is going to be led by Lauren Cash, the Manager of Enrollment Services at Lone Star College-Montgomery, and Aron Dixon, who is our call center lead at Lone Star College-Montgomery. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you guys and take it away.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for moderating today, and thank you guys for joining us. We've all been kind of chatting about how to do this electronically, and I'm sure we're living in that digital age where we're all giving each other a little bit of grace today. So please let us know if you can't hear us or if there's any challenges along the way in the chat, and then we'll be taking questions at the end. So like Shannon said, we do want to introduce ourselves a little bit. My name is Lauren Cash, and I am the Manager of Enrollment Services here at Lone Star College-Montgomery. I began with Lone Star College in 2011, and when I say that, I laugh because it feels like it was just yesterday. I started at the Kingwood campus in the Learning Center, and from there I worked for several years in outreach, both at Kingwood campus and Montgomery campus. So the way that I approach and things definitely has somewhat of an outreach and kind of speaking with students directly vibe, and we work very flexibly, and I know Shannon can attest to that because that's her current position. So in 2017, our Maverick Assistance Center was created, and we'll go into a little bit about what that looks like. I accepted the position of enrollment services at that time. And then in 2019, the call center began reporting to me, and Aron and I began collaborating together.
All right, thanks, Lauren. My name is Aron Dixon. I'm the lead specialist in the call center. I started my journey back in 2013 as a work study. I worked there for about 2 years, and a part-time position became available. I transitioned into that area and worked there for about 4 years. After that 4 years, a full-time position became available, and I hopped into that position, and I've been working there for the past 2 years.
Awesome. Thank you, Aron. So before we jumped into exactly how we transitioned to our virtual services, we wanted to give you a little bit of history of our areas. So today we'll be talking about the history of our MAC, how we began our VMAC, and how our call center, their history, and how we've kind of begun our mission together to be student-centered and really meeting the students where they are. So back in, 2017, we had Lean Six Sigma come out to our campus and do some evaluation of our processes. For those of you who are not familiar with Lean Six Sigma, it's a method, it's a company that provides a method of organizational tools to help provide the campus the capability of reviewing their business processes, to increase performance and efficiency, and to decrease that process variation, which we know it can be difficult, right? We have students going through processes with different experiences and different lenses, and same for staff. So we really wanted to do the best we could to provide a consistent experience through collaboration. So in addition to that, we did some surveys to our students and our staff to really evaluate those current processes. And what came through that is a real need to create a home for students, a starting point, somewhere they could come in anywhere in the life cycle of their journey with us and ask questions and know that we would help them figure it out and that we would collaborate to do so. So from that, one of our main goals was to reduce that wait time, to reduce the student confusion. You know, depending on your area and student services, there's always a little bit of a challenge of, okay, so which department do I see? And everyone is an advisor. I don't know if you've known that. If you hear someone say, a student will say, well, an advisor told me this, and that could be a financial aid individual, that could be the vice president, right? It was somebody that they met and that gave them information. And so really kind of helping them understand our processes, but also reevaluating the way we did our processes, right? Are they student-centered, or are they what makes sense to us? And so our mission really became to create a hub comprised of departments and services, focusing on navigating students through their college experience, regardless of the experience they had coming in, meaning if they were first generation students or if mom and dad had received a degree and could really help them move through the process. We wanted to be able to support them and be available to them. So that moves us in the foundation of our MAC. Maverick Assistance Center. So this is a visual image of our physical MAC. Right now we're in a temporary building, which I hear we've been in for 8 years, but we are excited to begin creating our new building right now. So this is our spot for now. It is a collaborative workspace. So physically in this space, we have admissions, advising, and financial aid working together. Depending on the season, we've had folks from student life, we've had outreach individuals, all working in this space and collaborating. So like I said before, students tend to think that sometimes we all share a brain, right? So they'll come in and almost finish a sentence that they started at another department. Our focus began really to triage students before they were seated and to waiting to talk to different departments. And then also see everything that we could get done up front in this space and how we expand to a center, right? So if I'm coming in with those sort of level 1 questions that can be completed very quickly, we have advisors in that space, we have financial aid in that space, and then we train some of our work studies and our call center folks and our, we call them Maxters, to have a high level of understanding of those areas as well. And what became of that is it really started to help our students get to know us and know that we did work collaboratively. And it really helped our team learn. I have learned so much about financial aid, which to be honest was probably the most intimidating process for me, because when we're talking about money, I know it's emotional. I don't want to say the wrong thing. And we really empowered our team to learn more about those processes. And that really helped students get a full experience right off the bat instead of it being so segmented.
Thank you, Lauren. So moving into our call center history. So our call center at the Montgomery campus started off as a pilot program back in 2001. During that time, we were only staffed with 3 advisors, and they had to answer a variety of questions in admissions, financial aid, and career center. Since then, instead of advisors answering calls, we now have 1 full-time specialist, which is myself. We have 3 part-time specialists, and we are staffed with 5 work studies. In addition to that, in 2019, the call center and the MAC became a single department to serve the needs of our students. So moving into our call center mission. So basically, our call center mission is to serve the students, of course. Our main goal is to provide information to past, present, current students, and also community members. So oftentimes we do have, community members calling in, getting information, tax information, events from, different events that are hosted on our campus. We do assist with as much as possible over the phone, and then refer to the appropriate department when we cannot resolve. So moving on into MAC call center staffing. So what does that look like? So our MAC on campus, we have staffed all of the areas listed within our MAC. So we have different folks from these areas working the MAC, and together we assist students with processes in 5 minutes or less. As for the call center, we do have our core team of specialists that are answering calls for various departments. It is extremely important for our enrollment services team to always have a growth mindset and to just really take a fluid approach to serving our students. And as we know, COVID really tested those boundaries to the max. So training and resources. So one of the things that Lauren and I have worked on a lot is basically providing a comprehensive training for not only our work studies, but also our part-timers. We have really worked with our MAC call center team to provide training in a variety of areas to develop our team's skill set. Our call center training consists of a 2-week training to all new staff. So the first week of training consists of workplace introduction, iStar, admissions, general business office, and basically like navigating the website so that we can direct students to the appropriate place when they have questions, when they're calling us over the phone. The second week of training really kind of focuses on applying that knowledge. So we allow them to shadow different areas. They shadow the call center for a bit. They shadow admissions, and they do shadow advising just to really get a feel of how those areas work. And so when they're on the phone and they're answering those questions, that, you know, they are very familiar with those processes.
Thank you, Aron. So now on to continuing the training and resources slide that we were previously on. We're just going to hop in a little bit on our continued training. So there are opportunities throughout the semester to focus on some continued training. You guys know, especially if you're living in a student services environment, and especially during COVID, the information was changing it was almost obsolete as soon as it came out, right? And so communication is just so important. I started as a part-time individual. I had an amazing experience, but I know that sometimes if you're not here every day, you may not feel as connected to what's going on. And so we take it very seriously to include our part-timers and our work studies in the same things that we include our full-timers in. Because oftentimes it's just a difference in hours and not necessarily a difference in responsibilities, right? So what we're looking at here is what is the training that we did and how does this all lead up to how we were able to switch over virtually as, I don't want to say totally seamless, but as seamless as possible, right? So our continued training looks like a couple of different things. In the summer, when we have a little bit of slow time in that June timeframe, we do what I've been calling our summer content series training. So that is bringing different departments in that maybe have a little bit different needs than a typical department. So things like Veteran Center, financial aid, where the nuances maybe sometimes get, I don't want to say skipped, but the level of information might not be there for everybody. And I can say for myself, my financial aid knowledge was pretty basic before we had them come in, present to us, talk to us about different scenarios, make sure we have the access to see the types of things on our side to help students up front. So instead of sending people back to that specific area, making sure that we can take a look right off the bat and say, oh, I can see that your aid has come in, but you haven't accepted it. If you can go ahead and do that, then we're able to send you over to financial aid, or that's all you're going to need today, right? So having Veteran Center come in and say, listen, they have some very specific guidelines from the government in order to have their funding. So the type of feedback and guidance that we would give to a veteran student is going to be different than we would give to just your regular person receiving financial aid, right? Obviously, the call center, once we began collaborating, we had them come in and say, here are the questions we're hearing. What are the questions you guys hearing, and making sure we're all on the same page with that. The photo here is one of my favorites. Obviously, it was pre-COVID because we were all standing very close to one another. And so this is a photo that we did of our Microsoft training in collaboration with Student Life. And so what that means is we've had folks, we take our training of our student workers very seriously because it's our job to help prepare them for this current position with us and also prepare them for the future jobs that they will hold. And so even though they are a very tech savvy generation, there are some things in the workplace that they have not needed to know. And Excel has been one of the big ones for our team. And we use surveys to kind of ask them, hey, would you like more training in this? Or hey, would you like to do something like that? So understanding what they need. And so this is another way we're meeting the student where they are, even if they're student employees, right? And finally, our impact sessions. Those are sessions that I created to really emphasize to our staff their impact on the student experience. If you've ever worked in a frontline position, which most of us have started that either in Lone Star or any job we held in college or high school, you know that sometimes you may not fully understand how the interactions you have with individuals sets the tone for their entire experience. So we tie those impact sessions with our cultural beliefs and with our campus goals, and our administration at the Montgomery campus does a great job of making us feel appreciated. So we want to make sure that we trickle that down to them. And so what that looks like is having people come in and say, hey, how does what we do up here tie in with our Own It cultural belief and things like that. And it has been a really amazing way for people to connect and understand that they make a big difference. That's their front lines. If they come in and they set a negative tone, that student will carry that negative tone kind of throughout. And so making sure that they understand that and feel that is very important to us. You're muted, Aron.
Sorry. So then COVID happened. So when COVID first started, our campus services were completely closed for approximately 2 months, only returning for workforce programs. COVID really forced us to really start looking at a more long-term plan to serve the needs of our students. So our call center reopened virtually on April the 25th, and the call center fully reopened with the campus fully reopened, with limited staff on August the 10th.
Okay, so how do we transition to virtual and how do we get started? This is how our VMAC was born, right? I know you guys were asking yourself these same questions. How do we support students from home? How can we replicate students? How do we track those interactions? And now the big question is, how do we do both, right? The way that campus is looking is changing every other week, right? And so we're trying to determine how are we going to move forward and what does virtual and in-person look like. We really began reviewing our original mission of serving students where they are and what they need in a centralized collaborative location and transforming that to virtual support. I really believe because our staff were so well trained and so comfortable collaborating that we had a really good foundation before we began those virtual services. So what does that look like, right? So Leonardo da Vinci once said, simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication. So we collaborated very heavily with our admissions department. They are fantastic and always willing to go above and beyond to see what students need. The images you're seeing right now are of our staff in our VMAC, and it is a Webex-based service where students are welcome, vetted, and transferred to other private rooms for various departments as needed. So if I was a student and I hopped in, and I said the phrase that most students say, I need to see an advisor, which may or may not be exactly what they're ready to do. Then the host of the room, looks up their iStar account, looks through all of the holds they have, walks them through where they are in the process, and then talks with them about their next steps. If it is in fact time for them to see an advisor, they have the testing scores, they have everything that they need, then we provide them with the link to the Webex room. For instance, if Aron was the advisor, I would say, yeah, John, it looks like you're totally ready to see advising. I do see that you have, this one specific hold that you're going to need to take care of in order to get registered, but I know that Aron is happy to talk with you about our nursing program. We provide them with the link, and then they are transferred over to Webex, Aron's private Webex room, where then she will meet with the student for as long as it takes. A little bit of a change in our mission for our virtual services. When we're in person, if we're in the front desk space, we tend to keep it a 5 to 10 minute or less process. For VMAC, up until this point, we like to keep fluid. There has not been a time limit, because if they're seeking a virtual service, that means that that's how they are most comfortable. And so we're going to get as much done as we can to get them registered and feel supported along the way. So in order to make that a smooth movement, we use Jabber communication very heavily. So I would Jabber Aron and I would say, hey, I have a student coming your way. They're interested in nursing. If I have, depending on how many students we have waiting in line, I may give them the ID number so that they're ready and prepared. And then so they'll have those in place. It is 100% virtual and face-to-face. So as long as Wi-Fi allows it, we do have our cameras on so that they can interact. And I can tell you those first couple of times that we did it, seeing faces. Do you guys remember when seeing faces was very rare? Right? It was just so exciting. They would open, they're in their garage and they're pop up and they're like, oh, hey, how are you? And so it was just exciting to interact because most of us who love that student interaction. And so to see their faces and for them to be like, I'm talking to a human was just so exciting to see that connection. And so we do plan to continue to offer this service, and we'll talk a little bit about how we do that. Our promotion and marketing, right? It's very important that students know how they can reach us. Again, back when we felt a little isolated from each other, isolated from our students, and we didn't know when we weren't going to be isolated. And so that was kind of a scary time. We worked heavily with our Marcom department. We promoted ourselves on our website. I was interacting with PSSA and with Faculty Senate to make sure that if their students reached out to them, that they knew how to contact us. We have the VMAC links in our signature blocks. It's in our voicemails. When we do our targeted applied but not enrolled outreach campaigns, if we're referring to them to online services, we include the VMAC link as far as how to access. And then I've encouraged, I don't know if you guys know, but advising gets some emails. Advising gets a lot of emails, right? So I've encouraged them to have an out of office that includes the VMAC link. That way, if they're getting backlogged in emails, students can hop right into there and receive service immediately. And so that's just providing another option for student, another flow for them to come in along with our live chat services. Students needed a consistent way to reach us. And so to make sure that they can trust the process, they can trust the quality, and that the people that they interact with really do have their best interests at heart. Social media. So just a few images there of some of the things that we did at that time frame. A couple of the things that we worked on is the image right in the middle is from Victoria, and she is one of our long-term Nexters, and she's just amazing at promoting our services. Those are some kind of organic, we call them like raw live feeds. So that's her in her backyard when we couldn't leave our houses saying, hey, check us out, we're here, we're available. That's our imagery there of the MAC and our Maverick horseshoe, which everyone's familiar with. We wanted to make sure that what students knew about processes on campus, they could transfer that same trust and recognition onto the virtual services. So it was important to us to have all the same branding and include those in those types of processes. That final little guy on the end is our little Maverick, and that was right in the beginning when people were like, what are we going to do, right? And so continuing to keep that availability open to students was very important. And now we're going to hop on to some of the VMAC data. So as you guys know, obviously from the event that you're attending today, we love some data here at Montgomery. And so we knew right away that we were going to be able to track this for a couple of reasons. We want to track it, one, because is this what student wants, or is this what we think they want? That's a big question that we ask around here, because it should be organic. It should be based on their needs and instead of what we believe they need, right? And so there's a mixture of that. There are some things that we know they're going to need to be prepared that maybe they don't know about, but it's also what's their preference, right? Are we trying to push them into the flow of our operations, or are we trying to see how they naturally and intuitively would go about services and then feeding in the way that we do things there? So a little bit of how things went, right? We like to be very honest about our processes at Montgomery. And so the first day versus our peak registration day, I remember the very first day, it was me in a Webex room, Bob from admissions, and Terrence, who is our veterans advisor. First, we were very excited to see each other, but we didn't see a lot of students. We saw one student. And so we were like, okay. And this is before we had really started promoting. We did a bit of a soft entrance because we weren't sure how it would go. And so we worked on things, we started promoting, and then some of our highest numbers reached up into the 300 area during our peak registration. And so you guys know that if you've worked planning events or anything, the main problem is if you don't have anybody come. The best problem you can have is if you have too many people come. So of the challenges, we're always going to pick having too many people come, right? So on those days, we saw about 300 students. Up until now, we've helped over 7,000 students through this format. And so it's just really exciting to be able to say, look, this is working and this is something that students really enjoy. We started off hours of operation from 10 to 2. And now we've evolved to mirror our hours on campus and actually be open on Saturdays for folks that need that reference as well. We do operate heavily on referrals, as I was saying, and that links a little bit back to our promotion. So the call center does an amazing job of referring people over. If they're interacting with students on live chat and the students need a little bit more face-to-face connection, we also get referrals from there. And additionally, the data that we capture not only can show the amount of folks that are coming in and maybe help us tailor our hours a little bit. It helps with staffing. If we're starting to see an increase on certain days, we want to make sure that we beef up our advising that's available for VMAC, or we beef up our admissions that's available for VMAC. The day of 300, I can tell you, I had my Webex room open. We had some people on campus doing virtual, at home doing virtual, and so it was just very collaborative and kind of that crazy fun time though, right? And so we want to make sure that we also use that data for reaching back out to the student. So we're able to go back and look at last week's numbers and say, okay, we saw 400 people last week. And then one of the things that we track, in addition to their name, student ID, contact information, is if they're registered or not. So it's very easy for us to pull that data and say, hey, I see you came in last week. It looks like you didn't get registered. please visit this link if you'd like some help, or please come in during these hours because we're open. So it's really doing that targeted outreach, those little tiny nudges along the way. We saw that they were interested. If we have staff available, we can have them research accounts, right? So a little bit like that applied but not enrolled, where they can say, it looks like you have everything but this, right? We also can track who they met with, right? So if they come in and say, I had an awesome experience with this advisor, I don't remember their name, I'd really love to meet with them again, we can look that up on our spreadsheets. So we save that through our OneDrive currently, and they're accessible from various people. So anybody can go in and say, hey, yeah, I see that you came in on Monday and you actually met with Aron, and I agree, she's fantastic. Let me get you her contact information because I understand you'd like to continue to meet with her. Our evolution, right? So we love to talk about what we're going to do next and some of those things. I'm so excited for the Tomball campus. They are one of the campuses that has taken this concept and really ran with it, and they call it their TAC, which I also think is fantastic. The idea when we collaborate is never for us to say, here's exactly how it should work, right? Our campuses are different, our staffing is different. So we love to hear that we share ideas and then we tailor it to our own. So at the time that we had ran numbers, they had supported 1,000 students in their area. Their staffing is a little different. They have advising and admissions and outreach that stay in that space the full time and work through those processes in that main room. And so that works well for them. And it's just really encouraging to see someone take an idea and then just totally make it their own. And that's really our goal. And like Dr. Chavez said in the opening session, it's our goal to come up with ideas and share those ideas and then just watch them fly, right? It's really amazing to see that happen. We most recently met with the Montgomery Learning Center to see if this could something that could work for their tutoring staff. They have a very different format and they're trying to figure out how to do some walk-in things. And so the admissions staff and the MAC staff have really helped chat and strategize ways for this format to evolve and to continue to help our students.
Thanks, Lauren. So here we have a student testimonial from Cody, one of our new Mavericks who recently visited the VMAC. It was super easy to connect with the virtual Maverick Assistance Center during a time when most interactions are online. The VMAC is close to a face-to-face connection as possible. They were able to direct and assist me with any questions I had. As a new Lone Star College student, the resource was extremely helpful and assisted me with navigating my first semester. Patent advising has been wonderful to work with and always goes above and beyond to help when, always goes above and beyond. I will definitely continue to connect with the VMAC when I have a question in the future. So moving on to call center virtual implementation. So as Lauren mentioned earlier, we were one of the first departments in our call center to jump in to be 100% virtual. So what did that look like? So we had to get our staff equipped with laptops, VPN set up. We worked closely with OTS to get folks set up virtually from home. Since working virtually, at the time we pulled this data, the call center had handled 17,339 calls. Currently, the Montgomery call center has handled 23,769 calls. Within the past 3 years, we have started to look at call data more closely to determine the patterns and when students, to determine patterns and to see when students are calling in so that we can provide the most adequate staffing based on the number of students that we are seeing in our call center. So we've also really taken a closer look at our hourly data as well to determine the peak call volume and the time of day that staffing is needed most. So for instance, for our call center, our Montgomery call center calls tend to peak within the hours of 11 and 3. So with this information, we've been able to provide the most adequate staffing based on the number of students we are seeing. Some of the software that we use at our Montgomery campus is the Cisco Unified Intelligence Center. This system allows us to pull reports to be able to see the number of students that are calling within a range of days, a range of weeks. We can really manipulate and pull whatever data that we want. We also use Jabber as a communication tool to communicate with our call center folks. We can also connect with advisors as well, and any other staff member that is, on Jabber, we can chat with them as well. In addition to that, we use When2Work. So When2Work is a software that we use at Montgomery as well to determine who is working on campus in our student area. So for instance, if we're on the phone and a student is needing advising, we can, check When2Work to be able to see, whether or not that advisor is working virtually or on campus, to determine whether or not the student should come in or if they should go to our VMAC to connect with an advisor. So call center growth and evaluation. So all of our areas are evaluated for quality assurance to identify our areas of growth. So our ACEs goal, for instance, our ACEs goal for 1920 was to increase calls handled by 5%, and we increased by 9%. Our current ACEs goal is to increase awareness in campus connectivity to integrate virtual and in-person services for a consistent student experience. We have also created a call center survey to send out to those students we've had the pleasure to serve to get feedback on our services. Challenges. So I think we've all faced these challenges, especially during the COVID times. So some of the challenges that we have really faced was anticipating student flow and collaboration. But despite those challenges during the pandemic, our campus leaders were extremely supportive to our health and our wellness above all else. We've had great administrative support who encourage us to use vacation time and have had access to various virtual sessions to help our staff not feel overloaded. These sessions include the PSSA Health and Wellness session, and a lot of our systems office professional development sessions, which I'm sure you all are familiar with. In addition to that, we've received email communications from our administrative staff and just encouraging a work-life balance and encouraging a flexible mindset, which is really important in these challenging times. So as I mentioned earlier, some of our challenges did include anticipating student flow and collaboration. So what did we do in order to combat these challenges? So for anticipating the student flow, we really had to use the data that we had to create schedules during peak times to anticipate the student flow. So like Lauren mentioned, scheduling when we know students are going to be coming into campus during peak times. And we also follow those same guidelines within our call center. And as far as collaboration, just really keeping a flexible mindset to learn the new technology that is available and constantly changing, pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zones.
Thank you, Aron. I think most of us would say right now, we don't even remember what our comfort zones look like, which certainly comes with its positives. We like to be very upfront about the challenges we've had, because I think the only way to look honestly and evaluate if something's working and making sure our staff is okay and doing well is to be honest and have those conversations. And so one of the great things that we found about that cross training and collaboration is if things get super overloaded on live chat, we have people from the call center that are trained that can hop in. Or if things are very overloaded in person, we can have folks, from other areas who are working in person do that. And so when we talk about that flexible mindset, it's certainly not knowing everything, right? We'll never know everything, but I think going with grace and not being afraid to fail is something that our campus has done an amazing job at supporting us. When we tried this, the conversations were not sure how this is going to go, but we're going to try. And the campus support was, yeah, try, let's see how it goes. That's all that we can do. And at this point, I think that we're stretching Webex's limits a little bit to the max. And so we're working around some things that maybe they didn't anticipate. So for the future, we have a couple of different goals that we'd really like to do. So the whole concept is to make sure we're still dialed into what students need, right? I run our data every week on in-person flow. and VMAC flow in the different departments. So I can tell you right now, advising is seeing about about almost equal VMAC to in-person. Admissions is higher for in-person processes. And so we look through that. Why? Is it because new students are less familiar with the virtual, so they come in? Perhaps, right? So it's evaluating that and adjusting staffing, adjusting flow, and just kind of being able to say, yeah, let's try it. And then that's what we mean by that flexible mindset. It's certainly not expecting people to not have the work-life balance that, if anything, it's the most important right now, right? So we've talked about cross-training. We've constantly evaluating where students are. We even will, if you have a student come in and they say, oh yeah, I was on virtually, but I decided to come in, I'll be like, oh, well, how was your experience there, right? And really what I'm saying is, why did you still need to come in? Is it a physical paperwork we needed? Is it a preference? Is there a gap that we need to kind of work on? Just really keeping our finger on the pulse of what they need. So the future, right now, right now is always fun because it changes a little bit every day, right? But we have no plans of getting rid of the VMAC right now because it continues to be a great resource for students. Now, as we begin to open up and we see an increase in flow, we might be able to decrease staff on our VMAC and introduce those folks over to this side. But our whole goal is to, if it's busy, we're going to jabber, we're going to jump on, and we're going to work collaboratively in that space to support students. So always asking them, where are you in the process and how is that feeling? And this time of intense change, it's been a lot, guys, but it's also been such a great opportunity to question, right? And anybody that works directly with me will laugh and they'll be like, who has questions? And then over to me, right? Because I want to know, okay, so what's the goal, right? Why are we doing this? And what's the end result? Or what are we going to do with that data? It's just very exciting to work in an environment that supports that. And so I think we're going to continue to do this, right? And so we have some goals that we'd like to collaborate more with other campuses. I know that everyone is doing some amazing thing to support their students. And I don't know that right now there exists a platform to talk about that as much. If you happen to know somebody in another area, you can say, hey, what are y'all doing over there? Here's what we're doing. And is that working for you? But I think that's in pockets, right? And so I'd love for us to have perhaps virtual committees or things from other campuses where we can continue to talk about how we streamline these processes or how we're able to continue those. This little picture here, I love and it always makes me smile. I don't know if you guys are doing well on budgets right now, but we're always looking at the money, and especially right now, we're looking at the money. So we have created, this is one of our virtual workstations. And so we have that big open space in the front, which is directly outside of my office. So if you're hearing any kinds of background noise, I apologize. But we want to create some intentional space, and we're looking to do that in our new building as well for people to work virtually when they're on campus. And again, with that collaboration and that kind of going back and forth, to have a quiet spot where they can work. And it actually is in our call center area, so that works out really well because they can listen to some of the calls that are coming in and really have an organic approach to the ways that we can interact with them. We do want to continue to evaluate our services and survey them and just continue to ask them, hey, how's it going? How can we help you? And how can we continue to evolve? So that is it for us right now. If you guys have any questions, I know Shannon may have to hop off, but Aron and I can stay just for a little bit here. And if you have questions, we're happy to answer them. Thank you, Brandy, for your comment. We miss you.
Lauren, there's a question in the Q&A that says, is there a similar link for LSCS Sci-Fair Campus that I can add to my course?
Okay, a similar link meaning for like a VMAC type format?
If the person who asked that yes, that's what she means. Yes.
So the Sci-Fair campus I know was looking into some innovative things as well. I don't know that they've moved forward with creating a link. I would say to reach out to their dean over there of student services and see if they have virtual services. I know every campus has a live chat option, and I'm looking to see about gathering that data too, so we can see how to pull all that and really build a big picture. But I know that every campus is working very hard virtually. We have chatted with Sci-Fair. I'm not quite sure which portions they've implemented. But I'm happy if you message me directly or email me to do some research for you. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Allison.
I have another question. What do you use to track your VMAC interactions with students?
So right now we're using just a basic spreadsheet. I say basic, it's huge. We use a spreadsheet and we save it in our OneDrive so that we can share it all over the place, similar to a Google Doc, but we've been encouraged to stay within our OneDrive as far as keeping information private. It includes, and if you email me directly, and I can put my email here in the chat here. I can show you exactly what it is. So it includes name, student ID, their contact information. So that's their email. Generally, we like to get their personal email because that's what they check most, regardless of what we ask. That's their intuitive nature. Phone number, if they're registered for the appropriate semester, so fall or summer right now. Who they went to see. I'm Lauren, I'm registered. Here's my contact information. And this is all functions of the host of the space. And then I met with Aron, an advisor. She's not an advisor, but Aron, and then I did get registered. And so that's pretty much the format that we have of that. And so each month we have that listed. It's the time so that we can also go back and evaluate that data and say, hey, it looks like we were super busy from 12 to 2, right? Because that's when students wake up. I'm a little jealous, but so that's when they kind of get going and they're ready to ask questions. So and that's how we kind of will do with staffing as well.
Okay, and can you please share the link for your VMAC?
Absolutely, I can share that. I can do that right now, actually. So we have, and I think that brings up a great point, and thank you for asking. In the beginning, we were trying to decide whether to share the exact link to the Webex room or whether to share kind of a landing page for it. So we do our best to we don't want to have a lot of barriers. So if you have to click a couple times, chances are students are going to bow out, right? But we also realize, and you guys may have seen this, if we make any changes to our event, the event link changes. So what we hate even worse than barriers is sending out something that no longer is helpful in a month when we change our hours. So what we did is we embedded it on our student resources pages, and I have included that there in the chat. And so if you go to that landing page, the first thing that pops up under student resources is our MAC branding, our fun little horseshoe, our hours of operations, how to access us, and the link directly to us. Another challenge we didn't mention is if you end up having people call in, it's not ideal, right? It can be done. We make everything happen in student services, but it's a little bit harder for them because they can't see some of the imagery that we are posting, and it's harder to transfer on. Another question we may get, so I'll go ahead and ask or answer that, is we had tried breakout rooms in the very beginning. And for those of you that worked with breakout rooms, it can be a little bit of doing in the front end, right, in the very beginning, and creating that. And so at that time, I don't think we had, Tristan Davis has this great term, it's bandwidth, right? I don't think we had the bandwidth yet to do something like that. It is something we're going to reevaluate over the summer to see if it's something we could do now that we kind of got the groove down, because in the very beginning, it was very much finding our groove, finding a flow, trying to bring that Six Sigma brain and saying, okay, what's our process, right? How do we make this smooth? So that is something that we're going to be looking for. Shannon is going to have to hop off. So if you have any more questions, if you could just put that kind of in the main chat, that way we don't lose any other questions. And while we're doing that, I'll put my email in here. Aron, if you want to throw your email in there as well. If you guys have any questions, I also encourage you to visit the VMAC, right? And when you hop in, you can introduce yourself. You can say, hey, I'm Aron. I'm from another campus. I just wanted to see y'all's process. It happened a lot in the beginning, so that we're certainly not afraid for you to come in and see the real deal and how we move through that and how we access that. So if you have, we're here for a little bit if you have any questions. I know Shannon has jumped off, but I did want to just give a little bit of shout out to her. We had We had a little bit of a time where we had to make some changes this morning with moderator, so she was able to jump in and just really help us out. So, you know, we're thankful for that. And Aron has added her information in there as well. So if you guys have any questions, or if you want to have maybe a separate meeting with any of us to ask any of those questions about how it may work for you. I know that Becky Duncan Ramirez and Becky Duncan and Deidre Coots worked very hard on their TAC as well. So they have some information. It looks a little different, but it's working for them. And I really like it. I like what they've been able to do. You absolutely may contact me and arrange a call. We can get anybody that you'd like to be included in on that. I'm always open for that, and so is Aron. Thank you, Donna. Thank you so much for your kind words. If that's all, I'm going to hop off. I'm actually going to be moderating a session here in a second. So I hope you guys enjoy your other sessions and you have a great time, and welcome to Data Camp.
Thank you, guys.